Hey, let's see, and we're recording, we're live. Hey, Bobby Halton here. Welcome to the National Fireman's Journal. This is going to be a Zoom meeting, but we have to pretend that we're not together.
Right.
Larry and I are going to put a sneeze guard between.
There is a sneeze guard.
There is a sneeze guard.
You just can't see it.
It's invisible. It's an invisible sneeze guard. So we're going to come to you. This is we're just hanging out in my living room, and that giant crate you see behind us there, that's for my dog, because she's a nut. But so this is great. So let me take this thing down so we're not staring off into space. So this is Captain Larry Conley, and Larry's out of St. Louis, Missouri, and we're actually in my domicile. Yeah,
very nice domicile.
Yeah, we've been hanging out with each other what 20 years now, plus. Yeah, long time.
You had black hair when I first met you.
So did you? You kidding? You kidding? And you had black. Says the guy who's 50-50.
Right.
Yeah, I think I'm 15 years older than you too, so that would explain why I'm all white,
right.
Which you will be.
Yeah.
So still on the job, St. Louis, and this is kind of weird because we're like talking to you, but we're like talking to each other. So excuse our weirdness, but we're weird.
Right.
And so we wanted to hang out today, especially with everything that's going on right now in America, which is crazy. And we were just talking, Larry's brother David put up a great video called Justice. And the song is Walk With Me that he used. It's a beautiful song. So I put it up on my Facebook page. I'm going to put it up. It's on my garbage. We'll put a link to it on this because it's beautifully done, man. Right. And Larry and I are old enough to remember, Rob Morrison and Derek and that horrible tragedy. And you want to talk about Walk With Me, man. The people, and we were just so. Let's give it some context, right? So right now, today, in case you're watching this weeks later, we're kind of in the middle of this. Post-COVID, and then George Floyd emotional, outburst, and associated with that is some bad actors who we completely disavow. Larry and I were just saying, violence is wrong all the time, at any time. Violence against anybody for any reason other than defending yourself is wrong. Whether it's being a bully, whether it's being expressing yourself through violence is not the answer, ever. This is the answer, man. This is talk it out. Listen, walk with me, which I think David picked a great song, because one of the things that, and full disclosure, I really only hang out with him because I'm in love with his mom. His mom and I are having a completely platonic, but mutually reciprocal relationship. She's a doll. I love her. But we have really great conversations because your mom and I, we were kids during the first round of the civil rights movement. We were young people then, and in our teens. And so for us, that was a big moment. I was in New York, and your mom was out in St. Louis, and both our cities were just exploding with all of that. And I was fortunate enough to be exposed to Adam Clayton Powell and that whole movement from New York, and Elaine had people that she was connected with in St. Louis. And so we were just saying that your mom Elaine mentioned to Larry that this time, well, you tell the story because we were talking about what's going on today.
Yeah, I was talking to her, and definitely she, being her age, she can't help but compare the civil rights movement during the 60s, 50s and 60s to today.
Yeah.
So being able to live through both of them, and I lived through it, but I was too young to remember being born in 64, but she
So I've only got 10 years on you.
Yeah.
No, 11.
Right. But seriously,
who's counting?
Yeah, who's counting? She was saying that this time around, from what she's seen with the images and all the news she's following, is that unlike back in the 60s, there seemed to be more participation of whites with black cause that's going on. And so it's making it more of a human cause, which is always have been.
Yeah, it's always been about human dignity. It hasn't been about anything. It's always been about human dignity.
Right.
It,
And,
civil rights is about the word civility, civilization. It doesn't. No one in the civil rights movement, Dr. King or Abernathy or your mom or I, no one ever meant to elevate anybody over anybody.
No.
It was to truly express that everybody should have equal access.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's always been, that's the constant that we see in both in our discussion yesterday, because we were on the phone for about 2 hours, and once she gets going, you just sit back and listen.
Oh yeah.
And because she has a lot of wisdom, so I become a sage. She becomes a sage at that point.
Yeah.
I just say Indian style.
And she's taught at FDIC.
Yeah.
Shameless plug.
Yeah.
So you may know who we're talking about. She's spoken at FDIC and did a great job. But she's exactly right. I mean, we're at a moment in time where, a lot of great can come out of this, and I think it will. I really do. I think that your mom's exactly right. That it is universally. I think unless you're, and look, and I'm not stupid. You're always going to have some idiot, irrespective of their race or gender, who's just an idiot, and that's never going to change.
Been idiots since the beginning of time.
Right, and idiots not included. There's no one who doesn't get it at this point in terms of treating people fairly and honestly and with respect and dignity. So I think that's a good thing. But we're going to connect up to. We kind of want to start with that because how do you get away from it today, right? I mean, it's just there's my grandson coming home with my dog, so we're getting the whole family in here today. Come in here, Ellis. Real quick, say hi to Mr. Conley. I got to show off my grandson. Come here, how are you doing? See the camera? You're on TV. There you go. This is my grandson. My love. And my dog, who's got the cone of shame on her head.
Right. Social distance.
Yeah, it's a Puritan thing. We caught her reading a bad doggy magazine. So instead of remember they used to put the yolks on their head. Yeah, they got a yoke on your head.
The yoke's on you.
Yeah, the yoke's on you. Sorry about that. But it's our podcast, so you guys got to just live with our craziness at the moment. We don't know what we're doing. So I think that it's great. I'm glad you're here too, and I love you. Larry and I get to visit occasionally because he's between two cities, and so it's always great because I'm in the middle.
Right.
I'm right in the middle, so we can stop and have lunch. And David, you still owe me breakfast.
Right.
Well, he does. He owes me breakfast.
Yeah. So we'll get you next May when we come down from
the Oklahoma instructors. Yeah. So anyway, I the thing that people forget, they always underestimate the courage and resolve, but not only the courage and resolve, but the goodness of this country. You know what I mean? And there's a lot more goodness than evil.
Yes.
And I think you're seeing people, starting to figure that out. And you're also seeing, and you mentioned this, it's all over the TV and the internet, where the folks who are trying to just express their anguish are stopping the bad actors from throwing bottles and bricks. And I saw one video where they dragged the guy over to the cops and said, "Here you go, arrest this guy." And the cops are like, "Thank you," and they take the bad guy away.
Sure.
So, and that's got to be the toughest job in the world.
It is. I think everybody who's still actively in public service, whether you're a firefighter or a police officer, it's a tough time for everybody. And what I'm seeing is that I'm also seeing things that are very historic too, because I don't know how much this went on in the 60s, because definitely filming things wasn't as readily available as it is now. But now when you see cops saying, "Hey, let's walk with you," or let's kneel with you, or let's show some solidarity, then what you're seeing is that it's disarming some of the anger and anguish of the crowd. And then now there's open dialogue, there's understanding, there's some of the things that David talked and I talked about in our leadership class, when we talked about empathy and placing yourself as much as you can in the other person's shoes, and maybe you can have a better understanding than just being drawing a line in the sand of this is where I stand, that's where you stand, and there's no understanding when it comes to it.
Which is beautiful, because I pulled up, you know me, it's always quotes, right? So I pulled a quote. I'm going to mess with our camera, but I pulled a quote. I don't think I did. Maybe I didn't. Did I? Did I mess with our camera? I don't think so. No, we're still on. So I pulled a quote from, hopefully it comes up in my search. There you go. Yeah. So this is a really great quote. And I never considered a difference of opinion in politics, in religion, in philosophy as a cause for withdrawing from a friend, Jefferson. And I mean, I think that people need to remember that. I mean, people might have different interpretations of, you know, you like Mr. Biden, you like Mr. Trump, you like, you know, this person, you like that person. That's fine. But it shouldn't interfere with your friendship. It shouldn't interfere. You know, we're both devout Christians, but we've got friends that are Muslims. We've got friends that are Jewish, and we love them. What's the word I'm looking for? We don't have qualifiers for whom we like or love or care about. You know what I mean? And it doesn't mean we don't disagree from time to time. Like, we had a great discussion about Douglas Murray's theory about St. George and retirement. And I think it's a great construct about causes. That there comes a time when you've won, but we haven't won yet. Right. And so you don't want to celebrate prematurely, but you don't want to obsess. You know what I mean? You don't want to. We've come so far in everything, whether it's got to do with women or sexual orientation or race. I mean, you know. It's just I'm impressed with the human race right now, collectively and by and large. And then, obviously there's outliers. I mean, there are some really racist societies still in existence. And when you look at majority societies, like America for a long time has been a white majority society. Now it's more blended, much more blended than ever before. But if you look at the more monolithic cultures, it's kind of difficult for those people because they are so monolithic. Like, if you go to China, where we've both visited, almost everyone you meet there is Chinese. My grandchildren are Chinese, part Chinese. But there it's monolithically Chinese, and so you gain a lot by going to places like that. Like, if you go down, you and I have both been in Africa. When you're down there, it's all black, and you gain a lot from that. You know, you go down to Mexico, it's all Hispanic, and you know, you go to France, it's all French. You know, and you feel like a stranger in a strange land. But what's interesting about the experiment here is we really are a melting pot, and that's going to cause bumps and bruises and along the way. And I think that, you know, I think the worst of these I think the bad actors have been found out, and now I think that the people who, you know, who get it won't allow them to compromise, you know, the free expression of saying, hey, wait a minute, you know, wait a minute, you know. And I think for the cops, and, you know, my heart breaks for St. Louis. Larry was a friend of Cap's, David Dorn, Captain Dorn, who was murdered during the rioting in St. Louis last week. And I've been told that I met the captain. I don't recall it, and I apologize for that. But you meet so many people, you know, you're going out, and it was 25 years ago. At my age, I struggle with breakfast. I think I had cornflakes, but and so no disrespect to David. My heart breaks for him and his family, but you know, there's no reason to hurt anyone ever, especially a man like that, you know. And so we're gonna work on this a little bit, you know. Larry and his brother David and I and Elaine, we're gonna continue to talk about ways to, you know, bridge that gap and make it better. And Larry and David are gonna keynote for us in 2022. So we'll have Larry and David on the stage, and Doug Mitchell and Dan Shaw are going to also keynote. So it's going to be two teams. So you and David have the stage, and then Dan and Doug have the stage, and It ought to be really, it's kind of a cool concept, right?
Great experience.
Yeah, teams,
Most definitely.
we always talk about doing things in the teams, and then,
right.
and then there you go. It's like one person. So that'd be kind of a neat experience at FDIC. So you can, and we've been talking about the glue thing. And I think right now, empowerment is part of the whole conversation right now. And I think that glue, which is an acronym for Larry's training program.
Growing leaders using empowerment.
Right.
And I think the odd thing about it is when we were talking about it, when we started this whole process, maybe a little over 10 years ago, it was kind of, well, that's cute, and it's a cute little leadership thing. And each year, especially with some of the social issues we've been dealing with, we've seen to where glue is needed.
Oh.
And whenever we go speak at different fire departments around the country and different audiences around the world, what we're finding out is that it's beginning to be more of like, this is something that needs to be really talked about and practiced before we get to issues like this, because it can help prevent these type of issues. And what happens is that when you leave things unchecked, leaving things unchecked can help lead to some of the a lot of misunderstandings.
Right.
And a lot of times when we talk about that, one of the things we talk about is having these courageous conversations in the firehouse. And I've had people kind of challenge me at times, like, well, I just no, you're right. I just tell this is something we don't talk about at all. And if you talk about it, like, you're going to get written up. We're supposed to be there to train and to serve the citizens and all that. And I get that. But if you and I work together, and my life is in your hands, your life is in my hands, I better have some idea about where you're coming from. Whether I agree with it or not, it's not really the issue. The trust is the issue. So we have to establish that common ground, trust, and us not talking about it, whatever it may be, to me, compromises that trust. How can I trust you?
Absolutely.
I tell them all the time, and especially my crew, that the reason that I might not like somebody that much, but I don't hate anybody, is because if Bobby is getting ready to fall through the floor, I want it to be a reflex that I got you. I don't want it to be like, he got different politics, and that stutter step gets in the way of me saving
That's
you.
Derek and Rob.
Yeah.
When Rob went down, Derek didn't even change his bottle.
Right.
And he knew he was low on air.
Mm-hmm.
He ran back into that building to save Rob.
Right.
And
so it's that reflex that I'm talking about.
Right, because they knew that.
And you can't be that schizophrenic, or I don't want to say schizophrenic, but you can't have that split personality that says, like, when the moment comes, I can separate and automatically be that way. Another thing I always tell people too, if we can't get it right in the firehouse, then how can I trust that you can get it right on the citizen you don't know? I think it's a biblical thing that says, if you can't love who you can see, then how can I trust you to love who you can't see?
Wow, I never heard that one. But that's good.
But my point is that, I think my mother would know that she could quote scripture just like that. But the context of it is that if you can't love your neighbor who you can see, how can you love God who you can't see? Kind of. So it's that same principle.
That's a great point.
And so my point is, why I bring it down to the firehouse, is that if I can't love you who I can see every day, then how am I going to love the person that we're yet to see in the street, and just think that, and
it's about respect. It's so we're both car guys. Full disclosure, we're going to be doing a little Facebook Live thing from the car in about a half hour, 45 minutes. We're going to go to lunch, and because we both love cars, but there's Ford guys and Chevy guys, and we have our silly conversations about Chevy stinks, Ford stinks, right? And I think that's lovely. And it's the same thing with politics and all the rest of it. And I think that Jefferson nailed it, right? I mean, you got to be able to get past that, and you got to find unity and purpose. You got to find, if your unity is some superficial thing, like you're a Democrat or a Republican or or even a firefighter. Be careful about that. It better go deeper than that. You better be able to say, no, no, there's a fellow human being there. We're all fellow human beings. And you got to start there. You know, I got people, I always have people on the wall. We got Washington over me here, and Lincoln over me here, and God, Reagan. And I think all of those men kind of embodied that, right? It was all about human dignity. And I think that hopefully, you know, your brother's video that we're going to share with everybody, hopefully, damn allergies, hopefully that more of that starts coming up. Like, hey, wait a minute, let's just, and it's about worldview, right? And one of the great misunderstandings in the world is that everybody thinks that everybody else should see the world the way they do. Well, your childhood and my childhood, two completely different worlds. Right. Yeah. And that doesn't make it right or wrong or good or bad, just were, right? And if we brought a third friend in, I don't care who, same thing for them, you know? And the whole point of the whole discussion today is just listen and respect that person's point of view. Doesn't mean you have to buy into it or agree with it, but allow them to have it and then walk away or express your point of view. But
or stay open, because even if I don't agree with people, it's funny that because I'm open to learn, I learn something. But if I'm listening to them just for the courtesy of it and not really trying to learn something, then I'm still not going to learn anything. I have to have that open mind. And the open mind, like I said, doesn't mean that everything that somebody says comes in and totally turns. Because if that was the case, you would never stand on anything. Bobby would say something, like, that's a good idea. Then somebody else would say something, that's a good idea.
Right.
You got to stand on something.
You got to have principles.
But, however, having an open mind means that just like I want you to respect my point of view, then I need to listen to yours.
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you what I had a struggle with was when, early on, was when Colin Kaepernick first knelt, right? Because to me, the flag, the country, patriotism is a huge deal. And like you, generally only kneel when I'm praying. Now, it wasn't clear to me whether Colin was praying or not, and I don't really care. But later on, I evolved to where, listen, he's got a right to do what he wants to do. I wouldn't do it unless I was praying. Now, if somebody said, hey, you want to kneel and pray during the anthem, I'm all about that. But I'm going to bless myself and I'm going to pray. You know what I mean? And that's when I kneel. And that's what I like about, you know, today. If people, they're praying, they're calling out to God, or however they express it. And I'm fine with that. But, you know, those kinds of things, you got to listen. And what's the person taught? What are they trying to do? Okay, that's how they want to do it. They're not, again, it's not picking my pocket or breaking my leg, to quote Jefferson. So you can express to them like, hey, for me, I can't, you know, this is how I feel about it. And I think Drew Brees just got a big hullabaloo about that. And God bless him. I don't follow it that closely. But for me, it's prayer. And I'll join anybody on my knees in prayer, anytime, anywhere.
David and I took a video, and we depend on like what people ask us to teach. We present it or we don't present it, depending on whatever the venue wanted us to bring forth. But anyway, a real quick, interesting story about that is that when Colin Kaepernick originally started to try to make a stand, so to speak, for police brutality and some of the social injustices that he was speaking out about, he just sat down during the national anthem. So there was this Green Beret, I forget his name, but we have the video. David has the video, and he called Colin, and he was like, we need to talk. And Colin was like, okay, I'm willing to listen. And he was telling him, I can't accept you sitting down for it's just unacceptable to me. I know I respect that you're trying to bring attention to a hot topic. However, I just can't respect you sitting down. However, if you can meet me halfway with this, kneel. He said, and then he gave images of people kneeling at graves, kneeling for respect, kneeling. He said, if you could take a knee and do that instead of sitting, then to me, that would be the compromise in you bringing attention. Exactly. That would be the compromise. You bringing attention to the issue, but at the same token, doing it respectfully. So that's where the kneeling came into place. And Colin lived. Now Colin could have said, "Man,
the hell we do."
Bump what you talking. I'm still saying he didn't. He kneeled. But my point is that naturally the flack he got for it is that it turned into the narrative turned into you're disrespecting the flag, you're disrespecting the military and all that. And he's never quoted
See, and
any of
I never heard that story.
It's a whole a day. I can get David. We can pull
Well,
it
no,
up.
I believe
No,
it.
but I'm just saying. But definitely that was the backstory. But that backstory doesn't get any highlight because people who want to discuss the negative part of it.
Right, if you obsess on it, right.
Or saying like, he's a loser and he's disrespecting the flag. And all he was doing was trying to bring attention to some of the social injustices.
And we're not,
and respectfully.
And we're not trying to tell anybody out there that it's easy, right? When somebody says something to you and it hurts you, right? It makes you feel bad, right? To go to the feelings part of it, it's tough to step back from that, right?
Yeah.
I don't care who you are, right? Like I've got friends that are atheists, and every now and then they'll give me a hard time with, the spaghetti monster jokes and stuff. And sometimes I have to tell them, hey, come on, man, lighten up, lay off me, right? And so after I thought about what he was doing, because it is respectful, I was okay with it, but I never heard that story about that. So it makes me appreciate
it's a great
that.
backstory.
Yeah,
and it's a great backstory. And the point we try to bring out when we're
so he's being respectful, but he wants to send a message. Look, I'm being respectful, but I'm concerned.
Exactly.
I like that.
I can do both.
Yeah, and you absolutely can do both.
Exactly.
You absolutely. Matter of fact, you should do both.
Yes. And and the key, he listened. And that's what we're trying to get. Like we always bring up the point. When the guy told him, he could have easily said, you're white, you don't understand. I'm not gonna listen to anything you say. It's probably a conspiracy to squash my voice. He didn't say any of that. He listened. He said, exactly. That's a more respectful and better way, and chose that way to still make the point.
That's good.
And that came from a decorated, Green Beret.
Wow. I still think Colin's stats in the last season stunk, though.
What can you do?
Then you go to sports.
Right.
Now we can talk about something we actually know something about.
Right.
The guy couldn't get out of the pocket. I mean, you tell he's like. He was like a tackling dummy at the last season.
And actually, that's the kind of stuff you get attacked. Like, well, why should we listen to him? He couldn't do this.
He couldn't get out of the pocket.
All right.
And that's how competitive the NFL is.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We got a buddy, Aaron Kinney, who played for the Titans. And and it's funny because we always talk about football players, right? We all talk about football players. The guy can't do this, can't do that. Okay, if Aaron was here right now, his head would be 3 feet above all of us.
Right.
He's as wide as the two of us combined. Right. And he was one of the smallest guys on his team.
Yeah.
He was a little guy.
Yeah.
So when you talk about those cats, like my buddy Brian next door, I'll introduce him. He's a fitness monster. And when I'm hanging out with him, he'll like show me something. He'll like do this on a machine or something, right? He's got a great gym over there. And it's like, okay, like take all those big metal plates off it first. And then this little old man will go,
right.
Sorry.
Right.
And he lifts he'll take like 100 pounds off like this. You know what I mean? I'm like
a frisbee and toss him
exactly. And I'm like, I freaking hate you. You know what I mean? But that's his life. His life is fitness. He's a super guy. So let's talk a little bit about firefighting, because this is a National Firemen's Journal, and that's what we do. And the leadership part of it is huge. And I think that one of the things we do a crappy job of, Larry, and I think we're getting a better handle on it, is exactly what we're doing with glue, right? Like, and I've participated in a couple of glue. The best thing about, you know what I'm doing? This is crazy. So you know what I'm doing. So I'll tell you something I'm doing. The guy who picked me up in the limo, what was his name? Sean Biddle. Where does he work now?
He's a fire chief.
Outside of where the Air Force Academy is,
Colorado Springs.
Colorado Springs.
Yes.
I'm going to keynote the graduation there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, in
Nice.
October. So
Nice.
Sean,
Probably get another limo, right?
exactly. So we're doing glue. We're going to roll in closer. We're near the mic. Sorry if our audio stinks. We're sorry. We're like two old ladies here in a sewing circle. But so this is what, maybe 15 years ago.
When you
glue
came
started?
to St. Louis? Yeah, 11, almost 12 years.
12 years ago. So 12 years ago, Larry says, "Hey, we've got this new program. We're going to do it in this theater." It was like one of the first or second ones you ever did,
Yeah,
right?
it was in the St. Louis Community College.
Okay.
There.
And I said, as long as I get to see your mom and have dinner at the house,
Right.
I'm good. I'll come. So I get off the plane, right? And I'm nobody. And here's this guy with a sign that says Halton, right? And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. He said, yeah, I'm here to pick you up, sir. And he's got a little like nice suit on and such. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So we go walking out, and the dude has a limo. It's a real bloody limo.
Right.
And he said, puts my bags in and such, and
right.
there's an old commercial where the guy says, I've never been in a limo. It was
Right,
small.
right.
I'd never been in a limo,
Right.
except maybe my dad's funeral.
Right.
And so drives me over to the glue presentation, and it never lets on that he's a firefighter buddy. And I'm thinking, man, Larry's got to be doing really good with this, man. He's got a theater. He's got this guy with a limo.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm like the whole thing, right? And then they fill me in once we get there. We had such a good time at that.
Yeah, man, you knocked it out of the park, because it's one thing when you write something at your kitchen table, and then when David kind of helped polish it up for stage presence. But what I was amazed about, what always stands out to me about when you were there, we did that. I had seen you do it a few years at FDIC, and I was saying, man, I wouldn't mind being in something like that with Bobby one day, where you sit up on stage, you kind of do the round table,
Right.
and people from the audience kick out questions. And when people would ask questions, instead of you pulling from the Bobby Halton archives, which is always, you learn something, you would always pull it from the glue teaching and then address it. And it was it was more of a command of it than I thought I had. I was like, this dude only seen this thing like once. How could he? I mean, he's a quick study. I'm taking notes off my class on what you said. Damn, this is, man, what is he doing? So that just lets me know that it was kind of a stamp of approval. I never really told you that, but I was amazed, because sometimes when you put on the spot like that, you could tell a person might have a general knowledge of it, but you could tell they can miss parts of it just because they're trying to generalize the leadership. But since we tried to zero it in on personal leadership, and you got it, and your answers resonated, that it was an amazing thing to see for us.
Well, what I like about the glue program, and let's talk about the glue program for a couple minutes, that it's built on uncertainty, right? And uncertainty is interesting. Uncertainty is probably our greatest fear, right? We're always worried about, I wrote an editorial one time called "See Me in My Office Tomorrow, 9:00." And you get that memo, and you spend the whole weekend thinking, what did I do wrong? You get the union boss to defend you. You walk into the office and the chief says, hey, I got tickets to the game. You want to go? And that's all the dude wanted you for, right? But in your head, you blow it up, right? Because there's uncertainty of the future, and we're all worried about the future. We're worried about our money. We're worried about our kids. We're worried about our health. And I get that. That's the human condition. I don't care who you are. You could be Elon Musk or Bill Gates. They can get sick too. Their kids can have problems. Everybody's mortal, and it can scare you. I mean, your mortality can scare you.
Sure.
But the other thing about uncertainty, which I loved about the glue program, was that in the glue program, David and you did such a good job of saying, that's okay. We're all uncertain. Nobody knows. We started this conversation today about race relations and what's going on in our country. And it's like the third rail out there. I mean, people are getting, Mr. Breeze is getting eviscerated. No matter what anybody says on either side, they're just getting torn apart. Nobody's listening to what they're trying to say.
Sure.
And then, but in glue, you start off by showing everybody how the best way to approach everything is by assuming that you don't know anything about it. You know what I mean? So that you keep soaking it up. And then that makes you more open to what's coming in. Like, I never heard the Colin Kaepernick story before. Not that I didn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
I just never heard it.
Sure.
And now it helps me to, and I always thought that kneeling was respectful. I personally wouldn't do it unless it was in prayer,
Sure.
because that's my commitment to God. I'll only kneel to God. I won't kneel to any other man or
Sure.
or anything.
Right.
I'll kneel to God only. But if somebody says, "Hey, would you pray with me during the anthem?" I'm your Huckleberry.
Sure.
All day long. But that's me.
Sure.
And I'm entitled to that.
Sure.
Just like Colin, you, anybody else is entitled to do whatever they want to do, you know. But I think that's a beautiful story, because it's disrespectful not to listen. It's disrespectful to be late.
Yeah.
And that's the fundamental stuff that we talk about in glue. Somebody's late. The other person interprets that as disrespect. You know, there's a commonality today where people wear ball caps all the time. When I grew up, you grew up, and I walk in Elaine's house, my cover's off, man.
Yeah.
I wouldn't dare, you know, if Elaine stands up from the table, I stand up. You know, that to me is the basis of everything. You know what I mean? And because if you don't understand that, and that's where kind of you and David started in the lecture, as I recall, it was like about the fundamentals of interpersonal dynamics, right? And obviously there's some cultural stuff, like you and I are touchy people, we're all over each other, and we've known each other forever. But some people would freak out about that, you know, and so that's interesting too. If that happens in your fire department, say somebody says, you know, well, you know, the chief went up and was talking to me, he grabbed my arm. Well, you know, you and I, when we talk to, we grab each other.
Right.
So find out first, you know, what is normal in that person, and then let them know that it's not normal with you, and that's okay, right? You know, and sometimes with a subordinate, you know, boss kind of relationship, you got to be careful about physical contact and all that stuff, unless it's in true comfort. You say, "Hey, man, you need me to hold you or something."
Right.
And even today, I think maybe you ask. I don't know. And then maybe, does that make it less genuine? I don't know. But again, that goes back to the uncertainty.
Right.
Just admit you don't know.
Yeah.
Just say, "Look, I have guys, gals, I don't know where we're going here with this." You know, but like with what David did today, and then we're going to keep coming back to this because it's just in everybody's head right now. Walk with me, man.
Yeah.
Just walk with me.
Walk with me. It's more powerful than just it sounded like a common phrase.
Yeah,
walk with me is the epitome of empathy, in my opinion. And when you walk with me, we walk with me.
Okay.
Walk behind me, not walk, but this walk with me is great.
Okay, now let me. I'm going to screw with him for a minute because this is what we do with each other.
Right.
So I had to correct Captain Conley the other day. A young ensign graduated, and Captain Conley said, "You go, girl." And I said, "No, Captain Conley." I said, "You go, ensign." And he said, "Well, in our community," and I totally knew what you meant by "you go, girl," but it was just a good point to jump back and forth because, you know, and to her now, "You go, ensign," man. Man, that's earned rank, and that's when you're a graduate of the yard of the Naval Academy. You've gone through hell. I mean, you've spent 4 years in a place that nobody wants to be, you know, and because you want to be a naval officer. And man, you saw the smile on her face. You could have taken that off with a crowbar. So it was Smith, right?
Yeah.
Ensign Smith, a shout out to you.
Yeah.
Fair winds and following seas, dear. I hope it goes well.
That was a great thing. And like I said, the only thing I was saying.
But wait a second, to my point.
Yeah, right.
My second chance to correct Captain Conley. Now, for regular people, walk with me is the greatest form of empathy. But in about 15 minutes, drive with me. We're going to drive. We're taking the Mustang out. He's got the Hummer in the driveway. I've never been in a Hummer. So we're going to take the Hummer out. We'll do a quick Facebook Live from the Hummer. And then we're going to take the Mustang out and do a quick Facebook Live from the Mustang.
There you go.
That's empathy.
Drive.
Drive with me, baby. Because we're car guys. So And that's a funny thing too, right? We car guys are car guys.
Yeah, no matter what. But no, we just have to listen, and that's the main thing. And like I said, I definitely heard you, because I don't want, being a guy who has a Navy background, I definitely know
Oh yeah.
what you go through, and even worse when you're in the Naval Academy. Uh, but a lot of times I feel like what's good about my voice in a lot of these different places is that I have luxury of, when I get back home, where I work is dead in the hood. I mean, it's like it's just the hood, and I say that as a term of endearment, because there are a lot of great. It gets a bad rap,
There's a
but
lot
there's a
of
lot
great
of
stuff in the
great
hood.
stuff,
Absolutely.
and so. But what I'm saying is that, but one thing that sometimes is overlooked because of what the narrative is, and usually the narrative of women, especially Black women in the country, is that they're only good for video vixens, or they won't amount to anything, or there's a ceiling, and sometimes the ceiling, they put the ceiling on themselves, not to mention the inherent ceiling sometimes that comes with it. So what happens is that when I talk to my daughters, or when I talk to, I'm a director, the camp director at the burn camp, and it has a majority of Black females who not only have to overcome their burns and body image, but have to try to rise above the stigmas and all that kind of stuff, or feel like they have to sell themselves body wise or otherwise, that's not using their brain. I like to put an extra highlight on when I see females, especially a Black female, achieve something that wouldn't normally be something that's achieved by a large amount. And when I put that highlight on it,
we've had this conversation.
When I put that highlight on it, to me,
first, and she's obviously not the first, but she's a great role model to everybody. And
we want to get to the point that one day you don't have to be the first. It's just it was just great, because
but you still have to celebrate first.
But you have to celebrate it. So when I say, so a lot of times, if you follow my Facebook page, if we have females, I'll do it for all females, but definitely the kind of,
well, we had Tiffany. Tiffany.
But when I say you go girl, and it's a reference to, if anybody ever watched Martin Lawrence, and he used to say whenever Gina did something great, you go girl, and so that's kind of the code word for, like, now if she could do it, so can you. Kind of deal.
Oh, so, absolutely, man. I totally dug it. I didn't know the Martin Lawrence connection, but but I don't watch a lot of TV.
No, it's been going on for a long time.
Obviously, I'm not a TV guy,
right.
But I'm trying to think of who Martin Lawrence is.
Yeah, he's a funny comedian. Guy. Yeah, I don't know if you ever seen the movie Bad Boys.
You have to go back to
him.
Bad Boys guy, the little guy.
Yeah,
he's hysterical.
Yeah.
Was he the guy who did the thing with the other guy was with the Rock guy, and he was a secret agent guy? Was that Martin Lawrence too?
No, that was Kevin Hart.
He's the funniest guy alive.
Yeah.
That's the funniest movie alive.
Yeah.
And the Rock plays the fat kid who grows up to be the.
That's Kevin Hart. But
that guy crushes me. Now he's not as good an actor as David Conley. Shameless plug. Shameless plug.
Right. Who is?
Who is? I wish he was here.
Right.
This would have been great if he was here. And you still owe me breakfast.
Yeah. And I wanted to finish the point too about David and Blue, is that the reason I enjoy David and I doing it so much is because I went to a lot of leadership classes before we developed that one, that would have this kind of cookie cutter ending to it. And everybody did great. Like, hey, great job. And then you take what you thought was a great job back to the firehouse, and you get your lunch handed to you.
You're right.
So it was like, man, I spent all that money learning how to do this, and I got my lunch handed to me. But the reason David, being the good impromptu actor he is, he can touch that nerve.
Oh.
And when he touches that nerve, we've had people literally want to fight us in class, or we have to
I've been there.
Let's take a break. Yeah.
I've been there.
And we want to tell them, good you finding this out in this safe learning lab, because if this happens at your job, you could get fired. So it's good we're figuring this out now. Yeah, or hurt. or hurt by us, because we're still two brothers from North St. Louis. We don't play that, you know. But what I'm trying to say too is that the reason we want to make it real and not have a nice clean finish, because sometimes when we finish, it's still a jagged edge, which means there's still work to do. There's still some healing to do. And the reason we don't mind that is because that's more real than great job, Robert. Hey, now, hey, keep up the good work and go out and save the world with what you just learned.
Yes.
And what you didn't learn.
Yes, Mr. Conley.
Yeah.
Yes, Captain.
And what you learned is not really preparing you for
well,
that,
you got to connect with people emotionally.
So that's why my secret weapon, I always say, is David. We teach you clinically what you need to learn through our formal presentation. But when it gets to the role play, nobody does it better
he's
than
the best.
David when
He's
it comes to knowing how to work the situation to where you're going to have to fully engage. And now that we got the suicide piece, I'm going to tell you, the first year we tried the FDIC, David said, "You want to try it in a little small venue first?" Yeah.
A little small venue.
I said,
let's try it at FDIC.
I said, let's go big or go home. And we did FDIC, and I'm not making this up to market it. I saw at least 4 people with tears.
Oh, yeah.
And because he was that good and that convincing. And some of those people came up afterwards, and the reason it was touching to them because someone had been through it, or known somebody or whatever. And that's why we always try to be responsible, making sure that we connect them. If you don't have a number, here's a number of somebody you could talk to. Well, Dr. Bev Murphy told us that because we vetted the whole thing through her first before we want to be irresponsible.
And I'm always so careful, but about that, because for me, my family history, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And
it's a big deal for a lot of people.
It's when it's in your family, it's tough to disconnect, and because all you can think about is
it's the taboo that firefighters don't like to talk about. They don't like to talk about that, race, politics, or anything like that.
So you're gonna love this. So I did a thing on free speech. This is a couple of years ago. I just wrote a recent one too about speech suppression of Facebook people and stuff. And it's either free speech or it's not free speech.
Right.
And I get it. There are people who have hateful, horrible crap. But if we don't allow them to say their hateful, horrible crap, then who's going to determine whether our stuff is hateful and horrible? That's the third rail, right? In other words, at some point in time, somebody is going to be upset about anything anybody is saying. So you either allow it all or don't do it. You know what I mean? And that's where I come from. But if you want to be a publisher, that's different, right? Like I publish magazines, and I wouldn't publish that because that's a publication. But if you're going to have a place where it's supposed to be free speech, it's got to be free or it's not. And because the conversation we're just having 80, 90 years ago, during the Wilson administration, people would have been really upset by it. You and I would be in jail. Woodrow Wilson was a
somebody be knocking on the door now.
Yeah, that guy was he was a bad guy. Right. And so anyway, be careful about that, right? Think about the gay rights things. The people as late as the early 50s were going to jail for being gay. Right. In England, it was a crime. Exactly. You think about the guy that invented the computer. That poor guy. That's why the Macintosh has the apple with the bite out of it. That's how he killed himself, because he was gay and he had to hide it. And anyway, the glue program, that's a leadership issue. Self-awareness, and some folks are so incredibly self-aware, and again, it goes back to worldview, that they think everybody sees the world the way they do, and they don't, and that's okay. It's absolutely okay. And the other thing too is to, if your opinion changes, that's okay too. If your opinion doesn't change, something's
arrested development, I call it.
Yeah, something's wrong with you. Arrested development's a great way to put it.
You don't evolve.
Yeah, that's why I love my books, because almost with every book I read, I get a little bit of a tweak to something that, okay, and now that construct that I have is maybe a little bit this way or a little bit that way. Like the whole thing with Colin Kaepernick from this conversation. All right, I gotta get that guy a little more street cred. I always thought he was a gutsy guy,
Mm-hmm.
but I'll give him a little more cred. You know what I mean? And I feel a lot better about him. You know, and the other cats that are doing it. Now, if they just bless themselves and pray, it'd be perfect. Watch now, everybody be doing this. You go. Or whatever. My Jewish friends once said to me, so here's a good joke. You guys will like this. A good joke, right? So I'm flying, and this is Rabbi, and I'm Father Jones, and this is Rabbi. I'll be the Rabbi. I'll play both roles. But anyway, here we go. So they're in a plane together, and they're flying like this. And the plane gets a little rough, and all of a sudden the Rabbi goes, and the priest kind of smiles at him. Oh, that. And the Rabbi says, "Hey, Hiram, you know, when the plane got bumpy and you blessed yourself, I knew that was for my benefit. Thank you so much." And Hiram looks at him and goes, "Mike, you idiot. I was saying spectacles, testicles, cigars, wallet. I'm good." You know, that's one of my favorite jokes. Mike, you idiot.
Right.
Because every priest is Mike.
Right.
Tiny.
Right.
But if you can't make jokes like that, if you can't have fun with each other, God bless you. You know what I mean? So we'll kind of wrap it up with some of the fun stuff we had. We've actually lived through a tornado together. We were in St. Louis, and a tornado hit the airport, and we had just done a class. We had just finished teaching. I can't remember where we were, outside of St. Louis. Nice people too. We had a great day, and Larry dropped me off at the airport, and I'm waiting on my plane, and a tornado hit the airport. And he calls me. He says, "You okay?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm gonna have to rent a car and drive home." And he was like, "No, come sleep at my place." And I ended up driving home because I just wanted to get, you know how when you're on the road, you just want to get home, and like, you know, and it was from here. So it's not like, and you're gonna do it this afternoon. It's not like it's a killer drive. It's what, 5 hours, 6 hours. So anyway, but while I'm going through the tornado, I've got him on the phone, and this is the best part of the story. So there's a tornado warning, and it was early when phones were early and apps were early. I don't know, it's like a couple of years back, 10 years or so. And a guy says, "Hey, it's on my radar that there's a tornado coming." And I'm with other, you know, flying customers. We look around the airport, and there's nobody left at any of the counters. And I'm like, okay, that's not a good sign. And then the tornado warnings go off. So I see a tornado shelter thing. And I tell everybody, let's go in there, like a fireman taking charge. So the guy opens the door and the alarm starts going off because we open the door, but it says tornado shelter. So there's two parts to the story. So I got him on the phone, and I said, "Larry, I'm at the window." And there was no camera on our phones back then. "Man, the wind's swirling all around, stuff's flying by." He goes, "Hey, stupid, get in the shelter where you're sending everybody else, and then call me." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay, good idea," right? So that's the best part, how stupid I am. So I get in the stairway, and there's this British lady, and she's freaking out, and she said, I tell her, "Ma'am, calm down. She goes, "Oh, the siren's going off." I said, "No, that's the fire alarm." She goes, "How do you know?" I said, "I'm a firefighter. It's going to be okay." She goes, "You're a firefighter?" So she starts calming down. I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "You know," I said, "Listen, fire department's coming. It's going to be fine." I didn't want to tell her, "Yeah, they're coming right after the tornado. They're going to find our bodies."
It'll be okay. We'll figure it. We'll sit through it.
It's going to be just fine. I'm lying through my teeth. Oh God!
I was surprised you were able to. I mean, I guess when everything passed over, you was able to get the car because, you know, with everything, because it hit. It did a lot. It hit the airport. It was a lot of damage.
It wiped out. It wiped out like 5 or 10 planes. It took out a couple of gates.
And the unique thing about the St. Louis airport, Lambert, is that it has like a tin metal type roof, and for the architecture of it, and so it ripped a lot of that. So it was real expensive to put all that back on, and it's a lot of glass too, which
I was standing right next to window, you know, as they're blowing out. "Hey, this is amazing!" And he's like, "Hey, stupid! It's a glass window, you moron!" Yeah, oh man, that was some good stuff. So listen, you know, we got a bunch of stuff coming up. Larry will be at FDIC this year. He'll be at the United Fire Conference if he can clear his schedule. The invitation's in your inbox when you get home. So that's going to be in September 22nd through the 24th. we'll see you in Indianapolis then, hopefully. And then when's the next glue session?
Actually, we're going to be in Plainfield, Indiana, Tuesday coming up,
Tuesday.
and we're going to go up there and speak to the great firefighters in Plainfield. They're having a training there. They had first moved it, and then they moved it back. It was originally supposed to be June the 9th, so David's flying in. I'll be driving up.
Oh, so David will go to Plainfield, but he won't come to my house. It's I'm just saying.
Where's the justice in that?
The thing, yeah, where's the justice? The things a guy will do to get out of paying for breakfast.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, so we'll be up there next Tuesday at Plainfield, and we're gonna be having dinner with been in touch with Chief Malone, so we'll be having dinner with him.
Yeah,
and
one of my best friends in the whole world.
Great guy, and
love that guy.
One of the guys who he told me when I got back in school, Dennis O'Neill and Ernest Malone and Forrest Reeder all told me, when you feel weary and feel like forget this school crap, I don't want to do it, they said call me anytime, because they all are scholars and been through and got their letters behind their names.
Yeah, the alphabets.
But they basically, personally gave me their number, say, if you feel discouraged, just call me. I'll talk you off the cliff. And it's been a couple of times I almost have called, because I had to do algebra. I haven't done that, and I can't tell when. I don't know why they put letters and numbers. Letters and numbers together and try to get you to figure it out.
And theorems.
But there's a reason for it. But I did pass, and so right now I'm working on. I got homework to do when I get home, but that just goes to show the great brotherhood in the fire service, sisterhood, brotherhood, family itself.
And it's interesting. That's a great point too, and we'll kind of close with that. But if you're a firefighter right now and you're listening, read everything you get your hands on. I'm taking 2 college classes right now, just online. I'm not looking for another degree or anything. But one of them's a leadership class, and it's really good. It's it gives you another perspective, and it's fun to do, because it's kind of challenging, and there's points that you don't have to agree with everything, but in college you have to pretend that you do, or they won't pass you.
Right.
So, but it sparks your your thought process, and so I don't care how old you get, it never ends, and that's what's always bothered me. People say they get the PhD or the MS after their name, or the BS, whatever, and they think they're done. No, learning's a lifelong thing, and that's what makes life fun, is learning. So
another inspiration was Rick Lasky. I talked to him for about an hour before I signed on the dotted line about it, because he's on staff at Columbia Southern University.
I'm on their advisory board.
Yeah, and I talked to him for a long time, and he said, "Look, I had a certain amount of achievement already when I went back. I didn't necessarily need to, but I did, and I'm glad I did." So. People like that, they encourage, and I know I can always call you. You always have great things to pass on.
But luckily now I've got that caller ID.
Yeah, right.
So I don't pick up.
Right. but like I said, these are the things that continue to help me, try to reach higher. And I appreciate not just all the names I mentioned, but definitely the ones that too many to name. Because that's the great thing about our fire service, the American Fire Service, and actually fire service around the world, but I deal mainly with the American Fire Service, is the ability to say, what can I do to help? And it ain't always the excitement of running into a burning building and dragging somebody out. It's as simple as like, call me if you need me for anything, and being a resource.
Yeah, a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose. That's I think, Maslow, did his hierarchy, but I think he may have missed those, and I think they're more fundamental. That's what Viktor Frankl taught us with his experience. So, hey, listen, this was a lot of fun. We're going to go drive cars and eat food, and thank you for joining with us today on the National Fireman's Journal. And if you like us, please subscribe. Please check out Glue. Would you have a website?
www.gluenationldc.com.
Larry David Conley.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So my good friend, Captain Larry Conley, St. Louis Fire, I'm Bobby Halton. Thank you for joining with us in the National Fireman's Journal. We hope you enjoyed our conversation. I know we talked a lot about just ourselves, but that's what these shows are about. They're about us and you. So thanks for joining with us, and we'll get with you again soon. Bye-bye now.